mistake. Now, maybe they could go on the other side of the coin. They're a little too aggressive.
Sure.
But that's been working for them throughout this entire tournament. They've only won one game. Jamerson brought it up earlier. They've only placed inside of the top 5 3 times.
Yeah, and honestly, it does seem like that is a lesson that they really took to home.
Yes.
That aggression overall. I mean, their first group stage match, not the greatest, but as we moved on to the second round and third round, they started feeling a lot more comfortable in their fights, and we got to see that their overall aggression, the speed that they took the fights, were actually being ramped up. So they are playing at a different tempo. I feel like maybe just overnight, you know, that rest didn't work out too well for them. And when they woke up, they weren't ready for the kind of pace that we actually had in this lobby. I mean, we were seeing a lot more teams play harder edge throughout that last set. And I think they do need to adjust to that. They will have the space to do it. Coming out of Overlook here, I think this could be a point where they can improve upon their play on World's Edge. We got to see both Crazy Raccoons and who was it? Noctum actually not having the best performances on E-District, which were historically their best performing maps.
Yeah, I mean, I want to shift to another team that I think has got one of the best stories here. We haven't talked enough about them. It's Timmy and Designful and Jen Burton, who is playing against now the two players who decided Waltzy was a better fit for us, leaving him in a bit of a pickle to get here. And this 100 Thieves roster was born. The iteration of it is now. So Falcons, 100 Thieves, a little bit of a back and forth I'm paying attention to. 100 Thieves go Cenote Cave first, and then they go for their E-District pick, and then they prioritize Mirage Etoile at the very end. How do we feel about what 100 Thieves were able to get together here, because they are playing with a little bit of a comeback story chip on their shoulder going into this?
I actually do like it. Dia talked about it. Mirage is not a bad POI. We've seen it in the past. It's actually worked pretty well, and ultimately Designful does love thermal stations, so when we talk about similar rotations, that's as similar as you can possibly get.
Yeah, I want to keep an eye out for that back and forth. Obviously, Crazy Raccoon, a previous winner. And maybe the biggest thing of all, Fnatic, the team that has been winning constantly. They hit a slump. We didn't know when the slump was going to come. We didn't know if it would come, Jamerson, but it did. How do we like their picks now? Prioritizing, obviously, E-District, and I believe it was World's Edge. No. Yes, it was Storm Point and E-District first.
Yeah, honestly, I'm fine with their picks. You know, they didn't get the L-Rod, but they had L-Rod earlier today and weren't able to convert off of it. So I think playing off of Barometer might be a little bit easier. We'll see how many how fast they can actually play. Possibly trying to get themselves some Trident access at that point. But honestly, I think the biggest issue was that T-Law lurk that they dealt with in the first game, right? We're talking about in the group stages, they started off our entire Japanese event with the win. Bookmarked it at the end as well with the win. At the end of group stages, they got the final win. You know, they got the final say. But you can't have everything go your way. This time around, though, I feel like they should be able to bounce back off of this.
Exo Clan, another team that is always great in typically later group stages and making runs. Don't necessarily start off hot, but Case Winnie's been known to steal the show every now and then as we take a look at our Storm Point picks here as they are finalized with all of our 60 picks done so far in the draft.
Yeah, talking about Exo Clan, they actually got Harvester, which I really do like for them. That's been a POI that K Swinney has been prioritizing for long before even the POI draft was a thing. Almost 50% of their points have come from World's Edge, so I do think getting a comfort pick, a map that has been working well for you, I really like that decision from Exo Clan.
Yeah, and you know, Dia, looking at another team that I think is always somebody that we end up talking about. I'll actually throw you two. You can see what you can look at. LG, a team that kind of shows up late, and there's kind of always in this position, it feels like. And then Orglis and Hungary, who sometimes aren't even in this position. They've already gone out, but are really coming off a hot day yesterday. Can they keep it up?
Yeah, you know, I actually expect Orglis and Hungary will have a pretty good day today. I'm not necessarily in the same camp about LG, but that's mostly because of me evaluating their draft. I don't think that they drafted as strongly as they did coming into yesterday. And yesterday they did pretty well. They actually did very well compared to their group stage. But I think that it could have gone better, especially if you're expecting like a certain level of LG. I would say that the LG that we saw yesterday, while they were better than the group stage, was not as good as their fans might expect them to be, given their history. Whereas somebody like Orglis and Hungary, I think, did achieve a really high bar and probably achieved a higher level than they have in LANs previously, although it was last LAN where we said Matafe broke this big curse. I would anticipate that they continue that coming into today, although I am still holding on to some of that.
I did want to follow up with that.
Yeah.
He has not made a finals at a LAN, and so, you talk about breaking the big curse. Now's the moment, and they absolutely popped off yesterday. Can they do it this time? I do wonder if he's feeling the pressure in this moment, but at the same time, you seem to have belief in them.
Yeah.
And maybe that performance that they did have yesterday gives them some confidence.
I will say I am inordinately biased towards Kinda.
I mean, it's hard not to be.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
pretty amazing. And we loved having him on the desk. They're also a team pioneering Catalyst in this tournament, the way Aurora is really pioneering Mirage. However, we're starting to see more and more of that Catalyst pick up. At least we did in winners, about 25% pick selection here. As we look at World's Edge, our final map, it will be the first map that is played. We'll do 1 through 3 there. Then we will do E District 4 and 5, Storm Point 6 through 8. As you take a look at these big picks, Team Falcons, Fnatic, Noctum, getting the top 3 there. Cloud9 right behind them, and Crazy Raccoon and 100 Thieves to follow on E District, which is where we will continue the middling part of the day. Teams have been struggling. Teams have overperformed in certain instances, such as Crazy Raccoon, and those teams have now decided, well, maybe we don't need to prioritize such a high pick on that. Team Falcons, however, they do, because they have not gotten many points. 19% of those points have come from E District. Is that chicken or the egg? Is it because they don't prioritize? We don't quite know. Now the stage is set. In 10 minutes, we will be going into the last round before our finals on Sunday. 10 teams will be moving on with a chance to lift the trophy in Sapporo. 10 teams will be going home. Thanks so much for watching. That's been your POI draft, and we will see you in just a moment.
Wait a minute, get it how you live it. 10 toes in when we standing on business. I'm a big stepper, underground methods, top notch. Get them news, nothing less on. Under your errors, pushing culture, baby, got that project you can measure. Then we gon' cut them off. My barber got me looking. Getting fitted on that top grade. You ain't walking out alive. You're what we on. They ask me how you be like this. How you be like this? Yeah, yes, swerving. Moving to the money like it's urgent. Hands on God, so I'm in it like a surgeon. Only thing I'm breaking is a bag. Yeah, baby, go bring out the goodies. Studied it inside the hoodie. Now we turning up to boogie. It's cool, I used to fight the bullies. Now I'm fighting in the dark. Guess some things only do for me. The time push me, then the time pull me. Man, I would not grudge. If you got it, then this time I push it. What you think this is? We ain't worried about it. Watch this girl do it. They ask me how you be like this. What you think this is? We ain't worried about it. Watch this girl do it. They ask me how you be like this. How you live like this? 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 How you live like this?
At the biggest stage in Apex Legends competitive, there have only ever been 2 teams to ever claim victory, Dark Zero and TSM. So going into Split 1 playoffs in Year 4 with Dark Zero dominating the North American Pro League and TSM winning match point in the North American Regional Finals, many expected this streak to continue. And moving into LAN in Los Angeles, for the first 3 days, things also went rather predictable. Dark Zero dominated as they always do through the group stages and the bracket stage, and TSM was getting the doubters that they always get before they finally pop off in the match point finals to win it all and prove why they're the best. But in this tournament, there was another storyline being written. A team hiding in the shadows, waiting to take the title from these 2 titans and become the new Apex Legends champion. So going into match point finals, where the script seemed to already be written, I correctly predicted a new champion, Reject Winity, in 8 games.
1 or 2 bullets more, the zone pushes them towards them, and Dark Zero go down to Reject. They lose one along the way.
I mean, they found the crevice, but right now they knew that they weren't going to win in their positioning because they were pinched. TSM get eliminated and Reject Winity clean up shop, taking game number 2 on Storm points.
Karapu's going to go wide here, put that gem down, give them something to play around. The fence is going to go down as well, just to get that perimeter up, to stop those pushes coming in. Both teams are just staying alive, and then Reject Winity are just going to watch this unfold in front of their very eyes. Surely it's going to be the moment for APAC North here. Sangyu gets the first knock onto a member of Serenity. C9 biding their time, waiting for their moment. As all of Reject Winity find themselves with Red Evos. It's a massive moment for Apex. It's a huge moment for APAC North. As Reject Winity will be your champions.
Now, I am not a psychic, and I was not making this claim to simply bet against the best. While Dark Zero had shattered records in the group stages, and Fnatic looked strong taking first place in the bracket stage, for a trained eye, there was clear evidence of this team having what it takes to win it all. And in this video, I'm going to break down what I saw in this team to make the correct prediction that they would win Split 1 playoffs and finally break the cycle. So I'm Burke, talking all things Apex competitive. Subscribe if you like that kind of thing, and let's dive in. For many spectators of the esport, their first time witnessing the performance that this team was capable of was during this actual event. But for those familiar with the APAC North region, this LAN victory was not nearly as surprising. You see, Reject Winity is a Korean team that has had rather large success in the region, placing 2nd overall in Split 1 going into playoffs and winning match point finals in their region in only 4 games.
He comes in, and here we go! RC! RC! Wins regional finals in 4 games, man. They win 3 out of the 4 games for regional finals.
A feat that is not only difficult, but unheard of, especially in a region previously known for having the longest match point finals ever held at 13 games. So this team was no surprise arrival, and they had already showed that they were capable of closing it out. But let's look more specifically at their performance at Split 1 playoffs, which even more clearly highlighted their inevitable path to victory. As we discuss the different attributes that allowed them to succeed, the biggest through line between these attributes is flexibility. Firstly, the team flex drop, which means that they did not go into the tournament with pre-established POIs that they would claim and fight for. Instead, they opted to take whatever POIs were available to avoid conflict that would run the risk of potentially losing the fight and having an early death in those matches. This choice to flex drop, however, comes with its own set of risks, as choosing to land on different POIs means that you have a lot more loot paths to learn, rotation timings, you need to study more of your neighboring teams to learn how they behave, and the overall knowledge needed to be successful is just higher. This is something that we see even more pervasive now in the age of the POI draft, something that at the time was not a factor. Despite this, they were able to show consistent success across the group stages and the bracket stages. This is due to their flexibility and playstyle. Unlike some teams that decide to play hard edge, rotating late, leveling up their shields to elevate their fighting ability, and finally taking fights to secure a better position, or hard zone teams which prioritize getting to position as early as possible, they chose to play flexibly, opting to play zone whenever they had the opportunity to, but never forcing that playstyle if the ring did not allow it. When Reject does not have priority, they play edge differently than most, moving based on rotations of other teams, posturing to force teams to rotate away from them, and only taking fights when they need to, constantly looking for the best position to play. The way that this team postures both in early and late game is truly a masterclass in positioning. Reject Winity has mastered a skill that I like to call shepherding. To discuss this skill, I want to reference specifically a game during the group stages. In this game, they had a position in a skyhook end zone that could have easily been attacked by many teams struggling to get into the zone. As the ring closes, these teams here have to rotate to one of the two buildings. And because of the time remaining and the zone on their back, they will have no choice but to fight for space as they run in. These are snakes backed into a corner. They have to lash out somewhere. Reject knows this, and they act very similarly to sheepdogs. By posturing out of their position and applying early long-range pressure, they signal to these teams that if they lash out in Reject's direction, they will die before getting a chance to fight them evenly. Because of this presence and posturing that Reject does, they are able to reduce the number of places that these cornered teams can lash out to. In this situation, it means that these teams will be forced to fight for the only other place to go. This building here. By forcing these teams into this building, it guarantees that when the zone pulls away from this building, all the teams inside will need to fight each other, while Reject is able to sit alone on their side of the map. This shepherding of other teams is a fantastic skill for teams holding a priority position because it allows teams to limit the options of their opponents. And Reject is fantastic at it, using the skill again on Stormpoint to secure match point as they hold the IMC Armory and force DSG to take the other side of zone and the teams from Dragon Balls to fight each other and ultimately die before getting a chance to rotate. We see this as well on their match point win, when they herd teams like DSG away to be crossfired by enemy teams, which allows them to clean up and secure their side of the map. Shepherding is a skill that takes great awareness of positioning and knowledge of the options of other teams. But when it is done correctly, it can allow teams to leverage the power of other teams against them. Despite their flex playstyle, they have an astounding ability to find their way into end zone. One skill I saw them use time and time again is what I like to call needle threading. They have an amazing eye for openings on the battlefield, and when there's an opportunity to take a better position, they can almost always see it and find ways to secure it, many times without even needing to take a fight. Two of the ways I saw them do this most often were through evac towers and during ongoing fights. When rotating late due to a far pulling zone, like this game here, we see Reject utilize a survey beacon to identify an open spot in zone, which allows them to evac right through all the other teams holding position to secure them the spot that gives them the best chance at success. They will also take better positions in endgames through similar tactics. When many teams hear their neighbors fighting late game, the instinct will be often to third party them to secure a better position and some extra KP. However, for Reject, their priority is to win the game, and they use these opportunities a little bit differently, and will only fight them if it means that end result. When a fight occurs, they see a distraction that allows them the opportunity to close the gap and secure a better position with less effort, while the teams that would prevent them from doing so are otherwise occupied. We see this many times throughout the tournament, like this game in group stages, where they use the fight that is happening in the end zone to close the gap, securing them a fantastic spot that they easily would have died rotating to otherwise. And we ultimately see this in their final match point win, when despite having a very far pull from end zone, they are able to completely circumvent teams fighting on edge and use the distraction of SSG and Dark Zero fighting in the end zone to ultimately walk right up and claim the best endgame position with barely any resistance at all due to their optimal timing. Learning how to utilize the line of sight of enemy teams, ongoing fights, survey beacon information, and rotational tools to secure you optimal positions with minimal resistance is a skill that can take years to hone, and few have it as perfect as Reject Winity. So it is no surprise that when they had the opportunity to lock down the match point win, they had no problem identifying it and achieving that goal. The underlying characteristic that encapsulates their tactics of needle threading and shepherding is their aversion to fights. Reject is by no means scared to fight. They have very mechanically gifted players that each can hold their own, but this is not how they identify success. Success is winning match point. Reject takes only the fights they need to take, the fights that secure them the best position, fights that give them the best chance at securing a win, or fights that ultimately give them more points if there is no ability to secure a game-winning spot. There are absolutely times where you will see this team get a large amount of kills, but these kills come from necessity, not out.
The energy inside the Daiwa House Premise Dome here in Sapporo, Japan is electric and will intensify as our teams continue fighting their way to the top, where in the end, there can only be one. The group stage saw Alliance, Fnatic, and Shopify Rebellion dominating the competition as our teams were seeded into their respective brackets. Then, in Elimination Round 1, it was Orgless and Hungry who devoured the lobby, while recognizable teams, the likes of NRG, Ninjas in Pajamas, and Dreamfire, unfortunately, had their runs ended early. We've already sent 10 teams through our winners bracket into the match point finals, and as Elimination Round 2 kicks off, it's time to see which team's championship dreams are a reality and which are just, well, a mirage.
Starting off the day with live music performances from Sim, and now heading into Elimination Round 2, where 10 more teams will claim their spot in the match point finals, and unfortunately, 10 more will be sent home. This is what it all boils down to, our 4th day of competition here, the 2nd series, the final series of the day, and I cannot wait to see what our teams have in store. Some coming out of that winner's bracket warm from their gameplay, but disappointed in their performance and hoping to pick it up here, while the rest were waiting in the wings to see what they could bring to the table here and see if they could continue on through to the finals. My name is Glitter Explosion. We're going to be getting through all of your Elimination Round 2 action here today, and of course we've got a desk full of pros to help us. We have Snipe Down, Graceful, and Jayhawk to get us through everything here today, Eric. This is what it all boils down to, the last opportunity for these teams to get through to tomorrow.
Yeah, there's going to be a big break after this. These players are here for a reason. They put in all the work, and we've seen what is honestly the most unpredictable tournament so far when it comes to the teams that are performing. We've seen some of the biggest heavy hitters that no one expected to be here drop down into the elimination bracket, and right now it's time for them to step up or go home. You know, we heard a lot of talk in these interviews about, you know, Falcons taking home the trophy, you can guarantee it, all this and that, and, you know, they're not showing it so far, so we'll see.
I mean, Graceful, you got to cast some of that, all right? You got to be in the fray with all of that action. So talk to me about what happened in winners and what could potentially carry over now into Elim Round 2.
I mean, the biggest thing we've seen is teams that struggled previous rounds actually started showing up, and even teams on the bottom side actually managed to move up. But it's been more even than ever. I mean, in the previous rounds, we've gone through tiebreakers. We've gone through 4 teams being 1 or 2 points off. We've gotten through, you know, teams succeeding and also teams, you know, struggling here hard like VP. But we've seen also signs of life with VP at the end being 20th. You know, we were talking about it, is this the miracle run or not? But at least signs of life is what we need to see, because at this round, it's, you know, you got to pop off or you go home.
Yeah, right? You got to put up or shut up here. It's the last opportunity. We're going to keep talking about it because there's only so many matches, 8 more on the line, that separate these teams from sitting and watching here in Sapporo, Japan, and participating up here on the main stage. Jayhawk, one final question to you. Not only did you get to just do that POI draft and see kind of some of the beginning thought processes of some of these squads, but you watched everything in the back. So tell me how you're feeling so far in the day.
I'm feeling good. I agree with what these two guys said. I feel like at this point in the game, this is probably the most even tournament we have ever seen. I genuinely do not know who's going to win. It feels like there are so many contenders, and like Graceful said, so many of the teams who perform poorly have found it within themselves to bounce back somehow. And with the fact that we have E-District now in the rotation, so there's 3 different maps where maybe if something's not going right, you can just swap it up and go to something new. The current meta with allowing for teams to reset and maybe clutch in fights that they shouldn't. This is such an even playing field that it's really anybody's ballgame. No pun intended.
Yeah, you know, you planned that with the shirt and everything. You look great, by the way. All right, fantastic fashion choice here to wrap up the day. But before we get into all of our action, obviously we just had an incredible winners round bracket to go through. And typically we talk you guys through all of the action that happened, but we had such a fantastic highlight package at the end of the series that if you just missed it and you're joining us here for the first time, we decided to run it back one time so you can see how it all went down.
Try and stick the rest, but that just means it opens the door.
I'm just going to say that Rumbling makes that highlight package hit that much harder. And if y'all at home are wondering why we are mixing that sim performance in, because we started off the day with a live musical performance with the Champ's original song by Sim and then into Rumbling. Go back and check out the VOD because it was crazy. But now let's talk about the squads that we've got here up on stage fighting for that final opportunity in elimination round 2. We've got lots of teams on here, Eric, so let's start talking about them.
Yeah, so, I mean, on this list right here, I mean, there's EXO, I think, was in a position to possibly win that last game to put them forward, so I know they're going to be biting themselves in the butt a little bit about that. I think Complexity is going to have a really good showing here. And then you have the crowd favorites in Fnatic, and I mean, I'm pulling for them. They had a really lackluster winners bracket finals after a very strong group stages, and I think this is when, you know, they get the crowd behind them. They maybe a little nerves out, but we've seen them in almost every single final. So, but one of the biggest teams for me that I want to talk about is FaZe Clan. And FaZe Clan actually dropped a player, Arctic, who went to DSG and then picked up JMW. So JMW has actually been on a winning roster before, and I'm wondering with the inexperience of a player like Synetic, who is so new to the scene, who is absolutely like phenomenal, if that brings a little more experience into them, as well as this might be one of the craziest losers bracket ones of all time if they make it out after basically they had 0 kills in Game 6, got so lucky to even make it out of the first elimination round. Then they're the 20th pick overall in this round, so they did not get any of the POIs that they want. And if they somehow pull it off, I mean, it's all about just making it through top 10. It would be a miracle, but we'll see.
I mean, that's what we're all about here. We've seen crazier things done before, and we also know what the squad can bring to the table here. It's about whether or not they can really find that rhythm here in losers bracket, but it is a stacked elimination round 2 bracket. So it's not going to be an easy road for them. They're going to be fighting against some of the best in our entire competition because winners was that crazy. Graceful, I'm going to jump on over to you next. We've got a few teams to talk about, but I know there's one specifically that you would like to highlight, and it's a team that put on a performance last time we got to see them.
I mean, I want to talk about no other less than ALGS and Hungary due to the fact that, you know, I've fought alongside and against them for the longest of time throughout my entire time competing in Europe. And they did show, you know, a huge presence their last series, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they do now because, you know, same way we saw other teams such as Aurora and Fnatic falling in certain areas in the tournament, they seem to be going the opposite way with the way they picked up. They started really down low, now they're kind of leveling up to see this form. Like that form they had reminds me of when they dominated in Europe. And where people were like, oh my god, are they this strong? And then they had, you know, fell a little bit short in other lands. But now, if they can keep that form up, they're definitely contesting people hard. And people are actually rotating away from them on the map now, as compared to before where people are just running at them.
Yeah, I think that if they bring the energy that they brought there in that elimination round 1 and they can kind of replicate even a fraction of that success, they will absolutely be setting themselves up well, at least for an opportunity to make their way through to that match point finals. It'll just be down to what they're able to kind of recap. And I'm talking about this elimination round 1. Here are the stats on it specifically, Graceful.
And that's the biggest thing, as we can see here. First, third, 6th, 5th, 7th, 1st.
Yeah.
This shows how consistent you are in getting into endgame. And endgame, you know, 6th and 7th might not look a lot, but an endgame where everybody's survival time is like 5x other metas. This is like true endgame in top 3 scenarios, essentially, because there's that many teams alive. But they've been closing out games. 2 first place and a 3rd place means that they're putting not only kills, but placements on the board, which have been the go-to, and they're currently in lower round 2, where you need top 10. You don't need to win the whole thing. So this could be, you know, essentially another momentum booster for them, because they just need to get top 10 for now and then lock in for finals. Right now, they just got to make sure to get through this round.
I mean, even looking forward to match point finals, if they end up there and they're able to have a 25-point game to start it off, hit that 50-point threshold, and then we saw them be able to finish out the series with a win, that's showing that they're capable of doing what they need to do if they're able to make it to that last stage. But I alluded to it before, Jayhawk, heavy hitters here in elimination round 2, specifically a team that I think everybody has had their eyes on here. Give me your thoughts.
Listen, we can't talk about this bracket stage without talking about Team Falcons. I mentioned it earlier after they fell. Waltzy had never been to the elimination bracket before. This is his first ever time. It is a little unfortunate that it happened with the 2 greatest players that we've ever seen. But the biggest issue with Falcons so far is they can't win games. In the group stage, we saw them, they placed top 5 a lot, and that's what got them all the points that they needed to do really well in the group stage. Unfortunately, when you get to the bracket stage, if you're not going to perform as consistently as they did did or as ALGS and Hungary did, like you're talking about, you have to get some wins on the board. They weren't able to do that, and that's why they just narrowly missed out. If they convert any of those end games that they had in winner's bracket into a win, we don't have this scenario where we're talking about them right now. They're going through and they're feeling good. Unfortunately, we are talking about them right now. As you can see in those games that they just played, only 2 in which they got inside of that top 5, and they got only 3rd place in both. They couldn't get the win. If they were able to do so, once again, we're not having the conversation, but if they don't get a win, there is still a path. Once again, consistency. If they can do what ALGS and Hungary did, a lot of top 5s, then I do think that they can absolutely bounce back. And I have to say, if there's anybody that can handle this pressure, it has to be Team Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely for sure. They've been in endgame quite a lot in the beginning of the series, and now, you know, they couldn't close the games out, but they're still there, you know. As long as you can, like I always say, if you can put yourself into these scenarios over and over again, at some point, one of them will fall in your favor and you'll have a big game. And they were almost there. One of them converts and they would have been there. And I'm looking to see now how often can they get into the endgame. But if, you know, z-o-o puts them there only 3-4 times, I think that's more than enough for them to make it through, because once again we're looking at top 10, not winning. So top 10 right now.
And here's the thing, they had the first overall pick. They got lightning rod.
Exactly.
That's the POI they've wanted. They haven't been able to have it throughout the entire tournament. So I do think this is the best chance they do have to pop off.
Well, they have to seize it. It's now or never, so we'll have to see what they're able to do. Sometimes they do perform well under pressure, seasoned pros, but we're almost there. We're going to find out the answer to all of these questions in just a moment. But for everybody at home, or even if you're with us here live in Japan, don't forget we have the perfect tool for you to be watching the ALGS your way. We've got Face It Watch, and it is on mobile. You can watch up to 4 different POVs. Pick your favorite teams, listen to their comms, follow their rotations, because we also have that map feed, and then you'll be able to keep up with absolutely every single match as it is playing out. All you have to do is head on over to faceit.com/watch, and then you'll be able to see ALGS your way. Now, we keep hyping it up, all right? It's time to get into elimination round 2, which means we have our casters standing by and ready. It is Vicky and Gino. And Vicky, I need to get your opinion on the sim performance. I know how excited you were.
I was not expecting the rumbling, but you know what? That was a beautiful surprise here in the venue to hear the crowd going crazy, to see how many people are here to witness history within the ALGS. What's good, everybody? Vicky Kitty here with Genome, and it is do or die situation.
It is. We got 20 teams locked in here in elimination bracket 2. But which 10 are going to break free to Sunday, Vicky?
It's so much pressure, because you also have to consider the teams that just finished playing, right? Do some of these squads feel comfortable? Do they feel warmed up? Sometimes, you know, you have that one homie that has to play like for 4 hours until they feel like they're warmed up enough. But for some teams, that could also be a little disheartening, where you find yourself on the bottom end of the leaderboards for that winner's bracket. Now you have to play into that loser's round 2.
16 games. I mean, we've got some players who in Pro League have to play 12 games in a day, and they say that's tough, right? Some of them are gassed out by the end. We're pushing it even further here in the championship. 16 games. It's going to be incredible to see if those teams coming from winners bracket, who obviously they've got a POI draft advantage moving into this one. They will occupy the top 10 slots depending on you know, their combined group stage and winners bracket scores. But that said, they're definitely a little lower on energy. You know, we had a little bit of time between the 2 sets, but it wasn't that long. You probably had time to, you know, rest, maybe just grab a meal and maybe an energy drink, something like that. But I hope they're fueled up and ready to go.
Because it's time to lock in. What you guys saw previously, that was our winners round 1 POI draft. We're going on to World's Edge here in elimination round 2. Look at our pros. They are ready to go, and so are we. We'll be saying goodbye to another set of 10 teams before we finalize what our championship final bracket, what that lobby will be looking like. Let's get it started. Game number 1 now on World's Edge.
3 games on World's Edge. It'll be followed up by 2 on E-District, and then the most highly prioritized map in the draft was Storm Point. As we move down to stacks, we drop in with Team Falcons. They did have the first pick in this POI draft due mostly to their great performance in the group stage. Obviously, they only managed to miss out on that finals berth from the winners bracket by just a little bit. But it's not going to be a good feeling for those guys. You know, Waltzy, he with pride would talk about the fact that he was the only player to make it through to the grand final straight up every single time, and unfortunately he has lost that record.
You have to imagine what goes through their heads too. You come out of having a record like that, now it's gone. Now you're fighting for your tournament lives. The circle will be moving over to the northwest side, closer between Lava Fisher and between Landslide. Some teams that are going to be rotating through that northern point through Landslide will be able to have that circle console, but you could already see a lot of these teams making their way over to that next circle pool.
Okay, so we've had quite a few zones already that are pulled, you know, around Landslide, somewhere between there up to the drill tower. But this one looks a little more western than that. So are we going to get a countdown, a Lava Fissure zone, maybe even a Raven zone under Trials?
Oh, that's been a while.
Yeah.
I've seen that one in quite some time, too. It could get a little chaotic there, but you do have the rocks that you could play off of for some natural cover.
Yeah, look, Virtus Pro, they do have a ring console. They were one of the only teams to first pick World's Edge. So they have, of course, gone for Skyhook West. As we explained, due to the amount of times we're playing each map, World's Edge being prioritized just a little bit less in this particular bracket stage series. But Virtus Pro get a circle near them, and they get one that they have the information for. So certainly something going their way early on in our first game.
Taking a look right now at Crazy Raccoon, who also have a ring console over by Overlook. Gonna take advantage of the replicator. And as they make their rotate over to the west side, Zero Tenacity have already been on their pathing right in front of them. Where again, a lot of these teams wanting to get priority over where that next circle is gonna be pulling, maybe taking their time to play closer to the edge there. Monument having a ring console. Crazy Raccoon already on the move for now. I'm expecting it to get really congested though, Genome, because if some of these teams really bank either this circle pulling towards Lava Fisher here, but holding that right now, C9 is ready engaging in a fight. With Monsoon, I got the initial knock here. Exo's gonna be able to answer right back. It's a trade-off. Complexity going in for the reset. Kimchi, incredibly low, but is gonna be able to get the res here.
It was a photo finish between the two teams of who managed to make it into that office there. They were both going for it at exactly the same time. C9 are worse off, but Exo happy to capitalize on the chaos.
Oh my goodness, the PK shots, the EVA 8, knocking 2 here. Fuda alive, K-Sweeney way healthier as Complexity is your first squad out in this lobby.
Maybe a blessing in disguise for C9 because they don't get into the office. They actually live to fight another day, whereas Complexity, with less health after winning that, go down. LG now rotating in from the north against Virtus Pro that we talked about before. Again, remember, they have this info, and they have decided to swing not through the southern entrance to Skyhook, but all the way around Trials.
The fact that there's already so many teams collapsing on each other, sharing some of that space over by Countdown is something that we could expect, especially the squads that want to take up the space over by Lava Fisher. Orgless and Hungry, a team that really popped off within that first elimination round, wanting to keep their stance here.
I mean, it was bizarre, the difference between their group stage performance and their elimination round 1 performance. Looked like a completely different team. And now that we've introduced some of those boogeymen, some of those very scary teams that dealt with them in summary fashion in our earlier series, Vicky, we have to see if Orgless and Hungry can keep the momentum going.
You find your space right there. It's definitely one way to do it. When you have the triple take, you could start peppering away, building up those Evo shields. Team Falcons. Heavy conversation topic here as they make their rotate through Geyser. There is a squad right behind them, by the way. That's going to be Crazy Raccoon on their tail, and they're not the only one within the vicinity. It's Noctem looking at them from the hilltop by the Geyser side.
Yeah, just a little bit of pepper there. One single Fnatic member in the vicinity of Falcons, actually, as they go towards the Evo. Did they just pull away? A little hard to see on the map whether they grabbed the Evo. And I just wonder if they were scared. If maybe they saw a member on the Evo and said, no, maybe we shouldn't take it.
Oh, they did.
Was that a misplay? Did they, you know, we have to be wondering about their confidence at this part of the tournament, right? And yeah, that could have been something that doesn't go their way. Okay, now we're back to Virtus Pro here, up on the North Lava Fissure side of things. And you can see they're actually taking a few too many stray shots from the marksmans coming out of Orgless and Hungry.
You have to imagine when you also find yourself in that building off to the side of train tracks on the outskirts of Trial, rotating there with this current meta. Be incredibly smart, but you have to be careful when you lose out on Lou. They're going to go in for the res. Slayer can't give the suppressed fire necessary after he gets beamed, but Zach manages to get away. He manages to get the res successfully, and they manage to bunker down. So many teams are banking on this pulling over to that northern Lava Fissure side, where we also see the Moby coming out here too.
There we go. Got a respawn here for our South American team, Dragons. A couple of teams definitely reading this as a Lava Fissure zone, I think, as opposed to a Raven zone as they take up these spots around the bins. Definitely had a few memorable endgames in this area. I think maybe the APAC South regional finals finished there in Split 2.
Always love being able to see how a lot of these squads have to adapt around where these circle pools are going to be too. And it does look like it's going to pull slightly more down to the south than the usual pulling north side by Trials. Dragons being our only South America squad in this lobby for now, as you get to see where that next circle is going to be pulling in. How many teams are still taking their time to play objective, to try to take their time into moving into that next zone? Specifically looking at Falcons, who are coming up on the 6 of VK Gaming. Noctem still moving around from Monument. If you want to take your time to go through Skyhook, you have that ring console available to you right there that you had mentioned, Gino, that VP had access to from the beginning.
Yep, looks like Envy might be flying in for that one. Falcons coming up to the train station, Noctem a little further to their south. Let's have a listen in as they spot Noctem out.
Alright, kill him. Kill him. There's blue armor. Blue. There's black fire. He missed. We get up here, we can kill him. Yeah. Give me a slack fire, I think. Uphill. Grandpa running. Already. Yeah. He's up here. Yeah, I saw that. I'm going fire. I'm flying right. You're a little ahead of us, Zero. A couple seconds. I'm trying to group. Are they on the rope? I don't know. Close. Good. Climb up. Climb up. Grandpa, I got 172 on the left! On the left, 72! I'm moving! I'm going connect! I'm peeking. Red boy's one, red boy's one! Red boy's dead! Crack! Fighting! I'm going forward! I'm going forward! Jimmy's running. Our train is fucking the fuck. Running, he's almost cracked. I'm chasing him. Yep. Look around, Walty, look around for us, right? Okay. He's flooding in front of me. Right in front of me. He's lying on, nice. I just died, I got 2 taps. You got 2 taps. He dead? I'm fine. You hold it for me? Can you punch me? Can you punch me? No. You're fine. You live. Okay. Coming. I just got 2 tapped. It's alright. Yeah, you're good. Heal the bomb.
Well, it was a rough last series for Falcons, but good signs there from them. You're hearing Hal com very minute things. You're just a couple of seconds ahead. And this is a team we know, if they're doing badly, sometimes that's what's lacking. They go back into their shells a little bit. But the fact that they are really making sure they are on the same page about every tiny little thing makes me think that Falcons have come into this with enough mental to make it through to tomorrow. I
love that note. Calling how many seconds you are from behind your teammate before trying to extend here, before they engage in another fight. After moving out of that evac tower, it's Crazy Raccoon moving out of Landslide now, looking to try to engage on Falcons. This is not going to be an isolated fight, by the way. If Falcons aren't careful, Zero Tenacity may look to try to 3P this from right behind them. They have no issue moving out of this zone. See how many teams are still in countdown.
Quite a few. 10 seconds will get a better idea of where this circle swings. It's still, as we said, maybe Raven, maybe Countdown, maybe Lava Fissure. That'll be coming in soon.
It is going to be an isolated fight, by the way, because their Tenacity actually lost out on one, so now they're forced to play out as a duo. So they're probably going to try to get the res over by Skyhook, where there is a replicator. So Falcons now looking dead at Crazy Raccoon, seeing what they could do now, because they also see where this circle is going to be shifting, and it will be directly on top of the northern side of Countdown.
Yeah, looks like Falcons are backing away here, so potentially not taking that fight with Crazy Raccoon. And yes, okay, as we get view of the zone here, this is interesting. So it looks like it will be a Raven zone. NB pulling up from the top, looking good. JHS Professional, remember, they've certainly had their moments, wouldn't be counting them out. But the thing is, a lot of Lava Fissure is still in, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the teams over to the western side of our map here misread this until the next zone is revealed. I think a lot of them might see this as a Lava Fissure zone and therefore not move early. That means all of these teams on the western end here, Team Burger, Virtus Pro, Dragons, Fnatic, are going to be in a super rough position.
And Orgless and Hungry, right? Because they land over by Lava Fissure. We saw them take that building over to the west side, so that's what they were banking on here too. So wait until they see where it's going to be shifting to instead. Falcons actually get to walk up here with C9 still inside of that northern countdown building. This forces Falcons to now drop down from the high ground, play off that low ground, and have to worry about the teams within the vicinity over to that southern countdown side, forcing out the Gibby now ults.
Oh,
but now they're getting looked at by this guy's Exo also looking at them.
Doesn't stay in the bubble. We can see how lining up the castle wall here, but C9 want to look. They probably don't want to give up the high ground, so they may get the reset here. Depends how these nades go. The front of the castle wall will stop nades, but the back of it won't.
And Disguise are also peppering Hal again, the charge rifle being the double perpetrator like we saw earlier on, except this time right in front of their eyes. Two teams, by the way, are now flying into Countdown. Zero Tenacity, VK Gaming are about to be in the vicinity.
Disguised already got a knock on the Falcons about 3 minutes ago from 300 meters away. They were sitting in this spot when they knocked them over towards Monument, but now Player K with the select fire has his sights trained on the Falcons.
To split their attention a little bit though too, you have to look behind you to make sure no other squad wants to walk into the bunkers that you're already holding, specifically thinking about FaZe. Circle closing in right now, and now with the circle shifting over to the north side, these teams don't know it just yet. There's no ring console here for them to really take advantage of, as we know where that circle is going to be pulling towards Envy, who I called it.
Exactly, full confirmation now. It is going to be pulling up towards the Ravens, and as we said, all these teams streaming in from Lava Fissure now, desperately looking for a home.
Team Burger, one of the squads that have been able to sit in this spot from the very beginning, have denied themselves the opportunity of loot and charging those Evo shields, still full blues. Meanwhile, Crazy Raccoon right underneath them, 1 red, 2 purples, having no issue to share this space before maybe trying to get some KP here if they can, because it's going to be a very difficult rotation for these squads coming out of Lava Fissure. Instead, Crazy Raccoon could find some space, as Disguiser could be looking at them from that southern building here.
Exactly, if you're trying to make a rough rotation like this, I mean, the armor is the least you can ask for. Making it that far on blue armors, we don't hold a lot of hope for Team Burger right now. DSG, they've given up their vigil watching over Falcons on the north side of Countdown and have turned their eyes to the south, trying to stop all these teams that they know will be flooding in from the south around through Lava Fissure after that last zone reveal.
Some movement from just now before the engagement starts. Strafing Flame takes a huge hit from the PK though. Dome going down. Sangjun with the wall hop gets a double knock here. Arctic then in the feet gets the knock onto Oobly. Lovely shots off the PK. Disguise get eliminated as Crazy Raccoon come out from this fight. But the third party could be inevitable from FaZe Clan.
Oh, CR are just styling on the wall bounce after PK hit. They get in there. FaZe Clan are split. They give them time to reset with that. That was definitely winnable if FaZe Clan had pulled the trigger sooner, something they've been struggling with the entire tournament.
And it was such a beautiful look from Crazy Raccoon before they were able to quickly reset, before engaging, but they lose out on Sangju first. Dropping down with the Newcastle wall, trying to go see if they can get that res. Only blue knockdown, they lose out on another one, and it is looking difficult here. CR with only 1 left, cannot clutch it out. FaZe finish that fight, an isolated fight at that over to the south.
Armors or not, time was against Crazy Raccoon there. FaZe held the better position and played it well. to eliminate them. Dragons also suffering on their rotation in. Many teams now trying to head up from the countdown side of things. GHS Professional sat in trials as long as they could, and now they will start making their way towards the other two teams, Envy and ALGS and Hungary, who have been sitting within the zone for a while longer now. Team Burger, against all odds, have found themselves in the middle of all of this.
So scary here, but after that one knock, I expect EXO to fully push. Yes, they do. Here they come, sliding in, using the dome to create that space, backing away. FaZe forcing out this to be a close quarter fight, but with the charge grapple, K-Swinny lets it unleash with the Sheila, and EXO take out FaZe. But I'm expecting the fourth party perhaps to come in. We know so many squads to be coming out of Countdown. It's 4 teams here still before we're exiting out to going towards where that zone is pulling.
Taking a look at Envy there, you can see they have so much space in front of them, even spacing out their rampart walls a little bit to increase the arc that Sheila can wreak havoc from. 100 Thieves should be a strong favorite to go forward to tomorrow in this elimination bracket too, and they've already picked up 4 kills.
100 Thieves coming out of their POI of Mirage, finding great space here. We saw him lighting up the feed earlier too. I believe 5 total KP.
Falcons have lost Waltzy, just the duo.
Let's play this out as a duo as EXO continued on this fight against Howie's one shot. There you go. Clean up on aisle 3 for EXO, playing with confidence. They pinged. There's another team right below them. Again, BK Gaming within the vicinity underneath. Zero Tenacity, C9. Still looking at the squads that are inside that next zone.
No scan characters required to recognize that they're a duo. EXO push in and grab that KP. 7 squads left now. Zero Tenacity have made it through to Elim round 2. And these players, I think it would be a first Grand Final Sunday for each of them if they were to succeed here.
The Grand Slam, kind of trying to make the magic happen though for Zero. One shot though as Zero Tenacity get eliminated. BK Gaming still alive. EXO still on the high ground. 100 Thieves are playing right on the low ground behind so much cover. C9 get eliminated. Our last 5 squads within this first game. You got GHS, VKG, 100 Thieves, Envy. EXO still on that high. Envy in just a prime position right now.
Somewhere in the middle of all that, ALGS and Hungary take a little too much damage from each side and are removed from the lobby. Down to 5 now. Envy, although their position was good starting off, are now closest to the edge of the zone and have to start moving. They actually do. We see them with great proactivity move earlier and start setting up those walls.
They recognize that GHS has way more space and natural cover to work with. They don't want to get put into a pinching spot. As you can see the rest coming out. Perhaps, maybe if I mean, it's working with some cover. They do it. BKG get their player in, but EXO just jump on top of their heads. They lose out on K-Swinny though, trying to lay. Fuda with the Havoc, he gets another knock. Just waiting for the inevitable to happen as Fuda's still fully alive and healthy.
Something we've noticed recently actually is with so few teams running burst weapons or even just ARs in general, when you get them very low with shotguns, a burst weapon can come in so clutch just to finish off those last few low health members.
It's crucial to get that KP. VKG get eliminated because in the distance, Envy mopped them up. EXO, after jumping down, they were forced eventually. Also get taken out as 100 Thieves get even more KP now. Last 3 squads alive. GHS, 100 Thieves, and Envy are looking at both of these teams. They'll be in the line sight of both these squads here.
Extremely early Gibraltar bubble comes out for Envy. You better hope they've got some other cooldowns in their pocket, maybe even a gold helmet to help them get those back faster, because that is your most important resource in these final zones.
And Envy had used that Newcastle wall already. GHS recognized that. They break down one of the barriers with the Sheila. Doesn't have the Sheila just yet, and look at the loot too. He only has 27 bullets in the reserve for that flatline.
He's also got an L-star and a flatline. No accelerator stock, no way to get that back up quicker.
Doesn't have that built-in perk as well. They're forced to move up, you can see that. Throwing out the nades from the sky while 100 Thieves are looking at GHS now. Envy fully slided in for 100 Thieves. This could allow GHS to walk up and clean up what is left, but 100 Thieves clean them up, and GHS are the nail in the coffin to take game number 1.
That is one rock star of a coach over there for the GHS Professional. Mad respect. Both him and the players. It was a slow burn for GHS. They hugged the corner under trials for a very long time in that game, and then only showed themselves when they absolutely had to come the last 2 zones. After that, slow walk in, and then we saw that Envy had burnt too many of their resources, too many of their walls, and then as they had to full send 100 Thieves, that really just put it right in GHS Professional's lap to win our first game with 17 points.
And starting at the theme here, you can hear the crowd going wild. I love the energy in the arena as GHS take game number 1, 5 KP, 100 Thieves. I highlighted, they were lighting up the feed. 10 KP going to them. EXO, we saw them fighting for the position that they were able to obtain over by that side building. They took that fight to complexity, and they were able to mollywop a lot of the squads that were forced to rotate from that positioning with 12 KP.
4 teams picking up significant points here in our first game, and EXO were kind of the stars of the mid game, and that's why we're seeing them. Now heavy hitters screen here with Swinny picking up 7, Feuda 7 assists, as well as a 2,700 damage. And I always feel like it's you know, the team's working out well when you're fragging and your support sort of picking up, you know, the same amount of kills and assists. Says something about the team working together. GHS Professional certainly giving their fans quite a lot to cheer about here in Sapporo.
The energy. That's how you start it. That's the pop-up I like to see. Coach looking absolutely spiffy out here. And let's not ignore GHS lackluster loot by that end game. We saw the L-Star there, lacking on the flatline ammo as well. Had to do what they could, while Envy had burned up that Newcastle wall relatively early.
There was really a lot Envy could have done, I don't think, frankly. You know, just too many other teams throwing Gibby ult, Sheila's at them. The bubble had to come out if they wanted to stay alive. And then, yeah, from then on, really it was full send and hope for second.
It's beautiful there to see where that zone was going to be taking us on World's Edge for game number 1, but we got even more action going on to game number 2. We're sticking on to World's Edge. Don't go anywhere. It come to you on the other side of this break.
Battle Beaver, the official controller of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Herman Miller, the official chair of the Apex Legends Global Series.
ドームあるよね、ドームあるよね。ドームある、ドームある、ドームある。オッケーオッケー。自分と。左コーストの熱い。アビで前詰めない。アビでこう、アビ出すよ、アビ出すよ。 ワイト。右ドもないよ。前、ゆっくり前行くよ、ゆっくり前行くよ。巻く。ゆっくり。ドム。前切って、切れたる。10番。ランパ。